Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Hey, earlier we had a chance to talk to Scott Jorgenson. He's a legislative aide up at the Oregon State Capitol, giving us a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look of this last session. Well, our special guest today is Scott Jorgenson. He's a legislative assistant and staffer up there at the state capitol. He's an author, former reporter, so he's a recovering reporter. We'll forgive him for that. Anyway, his latest book, On the Cusp of Chaos, and we want to talk to him about some of the things that are going on at the Capitol. There's a picture of it there on the screen. Scott, good to see you, buddy. How you doing?
Well, good. It's been a lot less hectic than you're used to seeing me.
Nice to see a smile on your face. By the way, your book is available at Amazon.com, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think few don't realize how hectic the Capitol work can really be, and you've been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah, and I started, my first session was back in 2005 as an aide to then Representative Dennis Richardson. So he actually emerges as one of the central characters in this book because of that and because of his subsequent run for governor.
Right.
In fact, I spoke with him the other day, and it was great because the day before Kitzhaber's resignation, I called him just to check in to see how he was doing. And he was at the employment office in White City volunteering, helping people find jobs.
Right.
And so he's still doing that, and that's been a lot of his efforts since the end of the election and his stint in the legislature.
So are we really on the verge of chaos up there?
Well, it's there and everywhere else in the state, too. And the title refers to a lot of the tensions that exist there and the divisions between urban and rural. That's one of the big themes the years that I spent reporting here in Southern Oregon and seeing what it looks like here versus up at the Capitol. And so the book goes back and forth. Half of the chapters are from Salem, and then half are from literally everywhere else in the state. So there's chapters from Grants Pass, Cave Junction, Estacada, Pendleton.
Wow.
And it's, you know, one moment you're on the outside looking in saying, okay, we've got catastrophic wildfires burning out here. Are they doing anything about it in Salem? And then you're up in Salem and you say, well, our chief executive who's supposed to be taking care of these is too busy worrying about trying to avoid prison, deleting emails off of state servers to do anything about these wildfires.
You know, I think it's so interesting because I'm kind of like you from the news background and reporting and things like that, and I listen to a lot of talk radio, probably to my psychological demise. But what's so interesting to me is that conservative talk radio is always complaining about what the legislature is doing, especially when it's in the control primarily of the Democrats in the House and the Senate. And I thought, well, wait a minute, time out. Those people are doing exactly what they were elected to do. And the problem is that we don't get behind candidates early enough to get them elected so that the conservatives can have a majority in the House and the Senate. So we have a Democratic governor, we got a Democratic-controlled House and Senate, and it's just runaway liberalism at a level that we've never seen before. Mixed in the middle of that, we went through a very embarrassing gubernatorial resignation. I can't imagine what it was like up there.
Well, and you know, obviously during the session I do updates here, and I imagine I looked haggard at times because those are long days.
Yeah.
And it's a million miles a minute, which is the name of one of the chapters that kind of starts off the 2015 session. And there is a disconnect. And that's why it's important that the citizens be involved in the process. And you have some groups of folks who are involved only when it comes to elections, and some that are only involved during sessions.
Right.
I mean, for example, the background check bill that passed.
Yeah.
We heard from all kinds of people throughout the state. We said, well, that's great, but where were you a few months ago when people were campaigning for office?
Right.
Your involvement at that point might have swung some of these races.
Are there any, and I want to say this respectfully, but are there any Democrats that literally think outside the box of what really is good for the citizens? I mean, that just doesn't go with the liberal bent. Do you see any hope there?
There is, and you know, similarly, my background as a reporter, I'd worked with a lot of Democratic legislators, including some of the ones here locally, like Alan Bates and Peter Buckley. I knew him back in 2002 before he was a representative. And that's one of the things that's mentioned in the book is kind of these relationships that people build over time. For example, we had a bill to help one of the small businesses in Grants Pass that was getting hammered with retroactive taxes on a piece of equipment that, and they had never acquired the taxes.
Wow.
A previous owner of the business equipment did. In fact, they're listeners, so they're probably listening.
Wow.
And I had to reach out to the chairman of the committee, who I'd worked with on a statewide ballot measure back in 2012, to get it passed and through the process. So the process does work and can work. And that was where, as you know, I'd interviewed Vic Atiyeh, our last Republican governor, prior to his passing last year, and he had told me that his favorite memory in the legislature was being a member of the phone booth caucus, where there were, you know, so few Republicans in the Senate that they could fit in a phone booth.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, despite that, we still got things done. So at the most frustrating moments of the session, I would just remind myself of that and think about that and say, well, we have twice as many members as he did back then, and he didn't complain. And you know, what a lot of people don't realize is that the vast majority of the bills that pass are non-controversial.
Right.
They pass out of committee unanimously and bipartisan, and
the way they go.
Pass both chambers on broad votes, but you hear the most about the handful of controversial bills that come up.
How hard was it for, whether they're Democrats or Republican, how hard was it to get through the resignation of the governor?
Well, it was a big, huge distraction at the beginning of the session, because you had TV news crews roaming the halls looking for anyone to talk to about it. And you know, you'd be getting calls and texts from people all over the state saying, what's happening? Is he going to resign? And meanwhile, people inside the building are asking people outside the building the same thing. Yeah. And what's sad is that we're the only state in the nation that doesn't have a process in place for impeachment. So if John Kitzhaber hadn't resigned his position, he would have still been governor that whole time, and would still be governor, and there wouldn't have been that mechanism to remove him from office, despite everything that's happened.
Let's face it, he got reelected 4 times, and he's only into his 4th term weeks, and all this come crumbling down. The residual effect. Is the state in trouble over this, in the sense of not only what happened with Cover Oregon, which was a mess, and that now has got ensuing lawsuits going. But what happens to a governor? What happens to Sylvia? From your perspective, what do you see happening there?
Well, it seems to me that they have her dead to rights on income tax evasion. And you know, the wheels of justice turn slowly, especially when you have this level and this scope of investigations happening, and multiple investigations. We're like investigations on top of investigations. Right. And I don't think any of it will come to a head in time to influence the 2016 elections. Okay. But I think by 2017, 2018, that's when it will really become obvious the full scope of what happened. And
we all kind of know what happened, obviously, and the buying and selling of influence and things like that. But there was something else that was kind of a technical thing for me. He declared her first lady, and they weren't married. And I get all that, even though I don't agree with it morally, but I understand that. But is that what caught her? Because had she just remained girlfriend, that would have been another issue. But because she was declared first lady, now, did she become property of the state, so to speak?
Well, that was one of the things we were trying to work on legislatively during the session, was to clarify the role of First Lady and what it meant and what the restrictions would be on that. But what's obvious is that she abused her position and used it for personal gain, and didn't necessarily tell the IRS that she made as much as she did off of it. Right. And actually, I just read a report the other day. It was this 50-page report, and it was compiled through public records requests across multiple states. And it details, they had a whole section about Kitzhaber and Hayes in there. And it talks about President Obama and his clean energy plan, and the involvement of Michael Bloomberg and Tom Steyer and all these billionaires, and the fact that they basically developed an organization similar to Organizing for America, which was his campaign arm. And what was obvious through the emails they discovered was that these folks didn't want a lot of this to become public, and went out of their way to do it. There was stonewalls from multiple states with records requests, and they even had some instances where states would deny that emails existed, except they already had the emails because they'd come across from requests from other states. Wow. And so because of that, the Oregon Republican Party is now doing a statewide listening tour on transparency and government accountability. And the first event was in Oregon City in early September. And they're going to be doing it here in Medford in late September on the 23rd, I believe. And Dennis Richardson's actually going to be one of the panelists, and he'll have a lot to say about it.
I would imagine so. All right, let us take a quick break. When we come back, there's a lot of other things to talk about. We got a governor that we didn't elect. What does that mean, and what it could maybe mean in the future? We'll be right back with Scott Jorgenson in just a minute.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back with Scott Jorgenson. He is a legislative staffer up there, and you work for Senator?
Well, I work for Senator Doug Whitsitt as his chief of staff, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah.
And he's, over the years, become kind of the voice of rural Oregon.
He certainly has. And by the way, if you're not getting their emails and their newsletters, I should say, what do they do? Scott, what should they do?
You go to the legislative website, that's www.oregonlegislature.gov, and it's very user-friendly, and you pull up his web page, and you can subscribe to the newsletter, and we put them out every week, and it covers a variety of topics.
Yeah. Doug is a great conservative thinker and one of the warriors up there in behalf of not only rural Oregon, but conservative in general. So support him. And go get the website and the newsletter. All right, Scott, we got a governor we didn't elect. How would you rate her performance so far, Governor Brown?
She hasn't made any drastic missteps, and she's actually worked in pretty good faith with our office. That bill I mentioned earlier to help that small business in Grants Pass, when she was Secretary of State, we'd worked with her office, the corporate division, in putting that together. And she gave us her word that I will help advance this. And within 24 hours of her being sworn in as governor, there was a public hearing and work session on the bill. So she did right by us. But she has that challenge where she's viewed, despite the fact that she's held statewide office for a while as Secretary of State, as being a Portland Democrat. And so the impetus is on her to demonstrate that she understands the issues facing people in other parts of the state, including here.
Right.
And that much remains to be seen.
Okay. You think she's going to run?
I'm positive she's going to run.
Okay, because she's probably the Democrats' best hope right now, right?
Yes, and it's easier to run as an incumbent, and there's a lot to be said for the power of incumbency, and John Kitzhaber certainly played that out in his third term when he was running for his fourth term. Because as much as people complain and say that they want change, a lot of times when it comes down to it and you're given the option to go with someone different, they usually don't.
What is the actual? Some people have asked, well, she's up for re-election in 2016, so the way the rule is written, she just takes over until the next election, right? She doesn't take over his term, she just takes over until the next election.
And in that sense, she was a placeholder, and then we'll have another gubernatorial election in 2018.
Okay. So it's 2016, and then she's got to run again in 2018?
That's correct.
Wow. So that's pretty interesting. Unless somebody else wins, and then they pick up a 4-year term, right?
Well, I think it has to reset.
Yeah.
So we're going to have back-to-back gubernatorial elections no matter what.
We still seem to be not attracting businesses to the state of Oregon, which is really sad. I mean, I tracked a couple of them. Say Tesla is an example, ends up in Reno, Nevada. They could have easily been in Southern Oregon, or they could have easily come here. I mean, we have the infrastructure for it. We have the infrastructure for some large high-tech companies here. But when you look at the cost of doing business here, they just say, sorry, we're going someplace else. You see any hope for that, Scott?
Do I? Well, for example, one of the first bills that was passed in the legislative session was low carbon fuel standards. And that was passed over the objection of every chamber of commerce in the state, just about, and vehemently, publicly objected to. And the first day of the session, they had hearings on it, and they just rammed it right on through. And
And isn't that the bill that was the controversial center of Sylvia Hayes?
It's all tied together.
So is it possible that thing could be overturned based upon the case, the lawsuit?
Well, I think it would have to be done legislatively when it all happens, but that policy was mentioned directly and specifically in the sweeping federal subpoena that was issued to him and her and all these different agencies and members of his administration and agency heads. It was all there.
So, I was kind of pounding the table when that was coming down because it happened right at the beginning of the session. I don't think the smoke cleared from the opening bell, and I was disappointed in President Courtney for pushing this thing because I thought, no, wait a minute, this thing is under investigation. I mean, this is the center of the controversy of Sylvia Hayes, and he's pushing the bill through, and it got through the Senate and through the House, and of course then here comes Governor Brown signed it.
Well, and it was part of a national effort too, and documents have been recovered through public records requests that show that this was part of a national effort spearheaded by the Obama administration for the Clean Power Plan, and it's a 55-page report that's online right now, and it talks about the involvement of Michael Bloomberg and Tom Steyer and these billionaires who are hoping to influence this policy. And it was a very interesting read, but to me it highlights that need for accountability and transparency that we just don't have right now.
Let me say to our viewers and listeners, Scott has authored a book. It's entitled On the Cusp of Chaos. There's a picture of it there on the screen by Scott Jorgenson. And here's what you need to do. Go to Amazon.com and order the book. It's a fascinating book because it kind of gives you like a behind-the-scenes look of how the process happens. I don't think the only reason I'm familiar with it is we've had a son up there for 14 years, and being a former chairman of the party, you kind of figure these things out. But I don't think the average citizen knows until a controversial bill pops up, and then all of a sudden they're interested in something. And almost at that point, it's too late. It's not that it can't be turned around, but so often they yell and scream. And so this book will help you to understand the process. And it's a lot more complicated than you think. And yet, I think there's hope in there as to how the system really works and at what level you should be getting involved. And I can't emphasize that enough. So go to Amazon.com, On the Cusp of Chaos by Scott Jorgenson, and grab that. All right, Scott, cover Oregon. A huge failure. Millions of dollars of Fed dollars involved. Where is the battle now? I mean, is the Feds going to sue the state? What's going to happen from your perspective? What's going to happen with this?
Well, we have lawsuits between Oracle and the state that are going to go on for a while, and it's become public now that members of Kitzhaber's campaign staff were very much involved in this. The General Accounting Office of Congress is looking into it, and campaign staff was coaching witnesses who then appeared before Congress to testify on it. And the book actually starts with some of this. I was reporting in Estacada back in December 2012, and that town reminded me of a lot of the towns I reported on around here, Rogue River, Cave Junction, where I'm driving by abandoned mills, and the schools have declining enrollment and struggling economies. But the outgoing state representative for Estacada brought this issue up in committee in December 2012 because he had a background in web development. His name's Patrick Sheehan. He's a friend of mine. He's actually the guy who introduced me to Vicatia, right? And he had gotten live product demonstrations from a company that built these kinds of websites, and they could have customized existing software.
I was going to say there's some templates out there. They
could have licensed it for $6 million, customized it for another $6 million, and had a functioning website for $12 million. Instead, they spent $300 million for a website that never worked. And they're still spending money hooking us up to the federal exchange and all that. It was all unnecessary. What was most disturbing about watching that committee hearing was the flippant attitude that state officials had. Because as it is right now, one of the pieces of ethics reform legislation we were looking at doing was requiring or enabling these people to be under oath in committee. Because as it is right now, agency heads can misrepresent the truth in those circumstances and have no consequences for it.
And they weren't under oath?
They weren't under oath. They're never under oath.
Wow.
And Patrick Sheehan asked these guys about it and said, why are you building a website from scratch when you can license software and customize it? And they, oh, well, that doesn't do what we need it to do. Right, because the $300 million that they spent on a website that didn't work didn't do it either. But he said, look, I'm worried about us wasting money. And their attitude was essentially, well, it's fine, because if we run out of money, we'll ask the federal government for more money. But we're at the point now where the federal government may very well ask for some of that money back. And the thing is that the 2017 session is going to be very difficult financially. Even if we're still in a point of economic recovery, ODOT's budget is in shambles, and it's unsustainable right now. Because of the Medicaid expansion that we did through Cover Oregon, the feds have covered most of that, but they're going to start ramping it down. But we're going to have to come up with billions upon billions of dollars. And in a way, that might be Kitzhaber's ultimate legacy. We're going to be paying for the mistakes of his administration for years to come.
There was a bill many years ago that, and I'm just going to paraphrase and simplify it, that would have given the, actually would have made the legislature to begin to bring back into alignment what we would call administrative oversight. Let's take a look at these agencies. They're making rules that are actually laws. They're charging fees and services without any kind of oversight whatsoever. And surprisingly enough, that bill that failed, that ballot measure failed. But it would seem to me that we're now at that point, if we don't reel in the size of some of these agencies and the bureaucratic arrangements of some of these agencies and some of their fees and their laws and regulations, we're in trouble. And I don't know, wouldn't that be a campaign thing that a governor could do and say, hey, wait, if I become governor, I'm going to form a committee, we're going to look at every agency, and we're going to do some whacking here.
And this is something we've looked at and that my boss, Senator Whitsitt's been looking at for a while. We did a newsletter about it a few months back, and we started by asking the state archivist, how many administrative rules are there? And her answer offhand was, I don't know. Let me get back to you. So they didn't even know how many administrative rules they were. And we finally found out, and we averaged it out over time, and found out that they basically adopt a new administrative rule every 11 minutes or something. I mean, it was outrageous. And you're thinking, you're a small business owner, and you're trying to comply with the law, but they're just kind of making it up as they go along. And when I first returned to the Capitol in 2013, I was with the House Republican office. And there were times in caucus meetings where our members would say, why, they would be frustrated, openly frustrated. Why are we having to pass laws to tell these agencies to do things that they should be doing anyway, that they're supposed to be doing anyway? You also have it happen where you pass a law telling an agency, hey, you can't do this, you need to stop. And then the agency passes its own administrative rule and says, oh, well, we don't have to because we passed our own rule saying that we can keep doing this. And we've been dealing with that with an issue involving the Department of Revenue. They came up with a creative definition for residency regarding military personnel in this state, and they were trying to hit these guys with retroactive tax bills, saying, oh, Colonel so-and-so, you owe us $20,000 because according to our calculations, you've been a resident of Oregon this whole time. Wow. And we slipped language into a tax bill to tell the Department of Revenue to stop that, to give a clearer definition of residency. It passed, and they were still doing it because they said, well, yeah, the law passed, but it's not officially codified yet.
All right, so am I hearing you say that if the legislature passed let's say an administrative oversight bill that says that the legislature now has complete oversight of all the agencies, and we're going to put a freeze. You can't hire, you can't spend, you can't do any more policies unless it comes through the legislature for approval. Are you saying that they could basically thumb their nose at you and pass another agency rule that would make that law go away?
Under the current leadership, and that's what we're kind of seeing at the federal level and the state level, was what does the rule of law really mean? And this was an education for me. And here we are working on laws, making laws. And administrative rules don't go through the same process that the laws that we pass through the legislature do, but they carry the same force of weight. And it all starts at the top, and that's where, for example, when Vic Atiyeh was governor, his background was in retail. He had to earn your business. And so he brought that customer service culture to these agencies. That culture is long since passed, and we've had decades of one-party rule since then. And the emphasis isn't on serving the customer, serving the taxpayers, it's on serving the state.
One quick question, we're out of time. One quick question. Do you think that the spirit that's in the country right now that is looking at non-beltway people, i.e. the Trumps and the Carsons and the Fiorionis and things like that, do you think that that spirit's in Oregon, that there could be a turnover this coming election cycle?
Well, the one candidate who is going to run for governor on the Republican side is this gentleman by the name of Bud Pierce. And he's a doctor from Salem, and he's putting his money where his mouth is. He's putting, $250,000 of his own money into his campaign. And he's a man who's never run for office, never held office.
So that kind of spirit's out there. All right, let me say to our viewers and listeners again, the name of Scott's book is entitled On the Cusp of Chaos. There's a picture of it on the screen. Let me encourage you to get a copy of it. You can go to Amazon.com and you get a copy. It's a great resource and a good insight of what's happening at the legislature. Thank you for your service, buddy, and keep up the good work, and look forward to talking to you many times in the future.
Absolutely.
All right, coming up next, we had a chance to talk to Marion County Circuit Court Judge Vance Day. As you know, he's in the news, and we'll share that time together with you coming up next here on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Well, one of the big topics is religious freedom of religion, and it's being challenged, as you well know, by the various cases across the country, and one of those cases is right here in the state of Oregon. Marion County Circuit Court Judge Vance Day has elected not to do weddings in order that he will not have to perform a same-sex marriage which violates his faith. Earlier we had the chance to talk to Judge Day, so join me in that conversation. Well, what an honor for us today to have the Honorable Judge Vance Day. He's a Marion County Circuit Court Judge, and perhaps you have heard about him in the news lately. And so we wanted to directly talk to him, and we have served together in some other capacities. And what an honor to see you, Judge. How you doing, my friend?
Good to be here with you, Perry. Appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you and talk about the issues.
Well, this has been very interesting. You have decided not to perform weddings in order to defend your religious beliefs, and you've been in the news because of that. Bring us up to date. How did you make that decision, and why did you make that decision?
Well, once the federal court here in Oregon made a decision back in May of 2014, I pondered what course I should take. I had been doing weddings up until that point, and I had several scheduled during the summer, and I was concerned about just canceling those because I made a commitment. I wanted to fulfill that commitment. So I talked to my staff and advised them that if anybody called who was a same-sex couple, that we didn't want to deny them the opportunity to get married because the court had spoken, at least in Oregon, but they should be shifted to another judge and quietly, basically a recusal. When a judge recuses himself from a case, nobody knows why, you just shift the case to somebody else. So my intent was to quietly and calmly and without hurting anybody's feelings, just protect my religious liberty, my First Amendment right, and have those people be married, the couple be married by another judge.
Now, in doing that, Judge, you made the decision not to do any marriages in order to be equal. Is that true?
Yeah, eventually. I had some on this calendar, and so I wanted to fulfill my obligation to those folks. And I think I did 13 weddings during the 2.5 months after the decision by the district court. So I did do some weddings, and I don't know, frankly, Perry, if anybody called and actually asked for my services that was same-sex. I don't know that. So this might be a victimless ethics allegation or violation, at least from the commission's standpoint. But my job, does not require me to marry anybody. Under Oregon statute, it is a may perform weddings. It's not a must.
Wow. Okay, so what are the ethics violations? It's a kind of a mixture of a couple things, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's 13 counts. My team has put out the complaint that has been filed against me at the end of June of this year. Filed is a bit of a euphemism. They kind of put it into their own system. They're not filing it in court or anything like that. We answered and addressed each of the allegations. We put that out into the media as well, because we thought it was important that people understand the real issues. What really happened, Perry, was back in the late summer last year, there came an issue regarding a veteran that I had helped. I was trying to be a good Samaritan, went over to his house with my son to go ahead and fix a wood stove or a pellet stove that he had. And while we were there, my 23-year-old son went out to his truck and got out a pistol and was showing it to this veteran who was a member of the Veterans Treatment Court that I supervise. He showed him this pistol, and I didn't even think anything about it. It was unloaded, but it wasn't present in my mind at that time that this veteran had a felony. I'd sentenced him for a felony. So that was the original issue, that could be a violation of ethics. And so I sent, once I had a conversation with a couple of judges on my circuit, they suggested, and I agreed, I volunteered to go ahead and send a letter to the commission. And so I'm the one who reported the original ethics potential problem. When the commission came down and did an investigation, some people told them that I had decided not to do gay marriages. And that's when things got a little difficult, because suddenly I was alleged to have violated multiple areas of the judicial code. And so I don't know what the commission is exactly thinking, but the bottom line is that, they've kind of taken a shotgun approach. And when you look at those complaints, I don't recognize the person that's on the other end, meaning me. It's not me that they're, it's going to be expensive. It's difficult, but I certainly appreciate all the people who've called and supported and standing behind me. It's amazing how sometimes when this country hears of an issue that is so important to our liberties, and that we have a good discussion in good faith about that people stand up and are willing to help out. I appreciate that.
Let me say to our viewers and listeners that Judge Day has, there is a defense fund set up in his behalf. It's called defendjudgeday.com. And let me encourage you to prayerfully consider supporting his efforts if this thing continues to accelerate. It's called defendjudgeday.com, and support his defense fund. Judge, we found out earlier today that Washington County Judge Thomas Cole has decided to take your position. Where is this going to lead?
Well, if you listen to the Oregonian and Steve Dean, who wrote a column the other day, he thinks it should lead that all people who are of faith and have this perspective should not serve in public service. They should get off the bench. They shouldn't be elected. In essence, what he's saying is the people of faith should not apply for jobs. And I strongly disagree with him, obviously. I think that the tension between the First Amendment and these rights, which the court recently decided are the law of the land, we need to have that discussion, and we need to see what the courts are going to say. To tell people of faith that they're no longer wanted in the public square, so their opinions will be honored and at least listened to. Our nation has come it has fallen far from where it first began. And I think it's important that people of faith stand up and say, no, I know the law changes, but God's word doesn't. And so let's start having that discussion instead of just trying to ruin people's reputations, like I feel mine is being ruined.
Judge, the whole issue of religious freedom in the United States seems to be in the crosshairs. What's your thoughts about that? Where's it going?
Well, I take Justice Scalia's point of view, frankly. I mean, he, in his dissent in the recent case, laid out what he thought would happen, and it's already coming true, and that's that people of faith are looked at as a lesser species within the public square, that their opinions are not valuable, that they're based on superstition, and that science rules. In essence, a philosophy of materialism or utilitarianism comes smack out of humanism, and humanism is a religion, frankly. It's a worldview. And most people don't, think about that all of us have a certain filtering mechanism that we view the world through. We all have a set of glasses. It's called a worldview. So our worldview, the Judeo-Christian worldview, my worldview, shouldn't be viewed as less in a constitutional republic. And I fear that that's where it's going. Unless we as a nation stand up and say, hold it. This nation was built upon a Judeo-Christian worldview. That's why we have a constitution and have this discussion rather than just have ad hominem attacks on people, destroying their reputation, trying to silence them from speaking out.
How's it going? Are you receiving any threats? Are you getting harassed?
Well,
that you can
my
mention?
staff is, I'm very grateful for my colleagues on the bench. Marion County Circuit Court has been a great support. The Marion County Sheriff has assigned folks to the 4th floor to watch out for me and my staff. There have been some unfortunate calls and some unfortunate mail and faxes received, but I think at least 2 to 1, it's been favorable versus negative. And I want to say thank you to those people who have been calling and texting and doing those things, that, especially on the internet. To have this lively debate on the internet is important, and to not be afraid to speak out. The more people that speak out, the more will be heard.
Judge, there's an interesting twist to this. You're not allowed to defend yourself.
Well, yeah, that's the uncomfortable part. By even getting on your television show and talking to you, there's a potential that the commission could say that violates the judicial ethics canons, and that I have, now going to have to defend myself just for defending myself. But my lawyers and I, when we talked about it, I made the decision, frankly, that when the commission put out the press release earlier this week that was inaccurate, it was, in my opinion, ill-timed, meaning they didn't send it to me personally. I didn't even know about it until I started getting calls. And so we decided, no, I need to step out and start discussing this. Because without at least a thoughtful discussion about our liberties and when they come into conflict, what we should do, we who want to stand for the liberties that we have will just be rolled over. And you know me, I'm not that type of person to allow that to happen.
Judge, in closing, first of all, I want to say to our viewers and listeners that Judge Vance Day does have a defense fund, and I'm encouraging you to prayerfully consider sending him a donation. How far do you think this is going to go? By the way, the defense fund is called defendjudgeday.com. Defendjudgeday.com. How far do you think this is going to go, Judge?
Well, we'll have a 2-week hearing, it looks like, in November. That's kind of like a trial before the commission. The commission, they prosecute the case, well, they decide to file the case, they prosecute it, they're the judges on the case, and they're also the jury. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with the commission, since they're the ones who are prosecuting me and going to decide my fate. I shouldn't say they get to decide my fate. We know who does. Then it goes up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will look at the facts that the commission has decided, and they will listen to the recommendations of the commission, and then they'll make a decision. From that point, I think we have an option, depending upon what the Supreme Court does, to then file with the United States Supreme Court and ask them to listen to the case and to decide whether a judge, if my First Amendment rights are violated, that to decide that issue. And so that's what we're preparing for. We got a long way to go before we get there, if we even get there. But we have to be prepared. And this issue is not going to go away. They gave me the opportunity to resign. In essence, they said, either you can go through this process or you can resign, and it all goes away and nobody will know. Well, I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm not resigning.
Wow, thank you for your stance. One part of this ethics violation, I don't understand. Where did the artwork come into the picture? Why are they attaching that to this commission research? I mean, that seems so far out of the case.
Well, I think it adds a salacious point to, a media bite, if you will. When the media hears that a judge hung a picture of Hitler, oh my gosh, then everybody gets all excited. Well, we have 70, 80 wall hangings on the 4th floor that are designed to encourage soldiers who are part of the Marion County Veterans Treatment Court. And those wall hangings show, soldiers all the way back from the Civil War through Vietnam who came back kind of torn up, but made lives that were valuable, and they got healthy and whole. And so we've hung many pieces of memorabilia. And there was a World War II surgeon who was a paratrooper who came back with the Bronze Star and a unique painting of Hitler. And he wanted to donate, his family did, his memorabilia and this painting of Hitler, to be hung somewhere. So we created this wonderful collage with the picture of Hitler, the painting, way in the back, and everything of the soldier in front of it, over the top of him. And the design was to say, when a nation of citizen soldiers volunteers to go overseas, leave their families, leave their jobs to fight fascism, we will win. And we did win. We wanted people to understand that unless we understand and see the face of evil, if we forget what it looks like, we are doomed to fight it again. Well, that was the point of the piece, but it doesn't come out like that in the media. And the commission has decided that by putting up that beautiful framing piece, in my opinion, it was beautiful, that I violated the ethics canon because it happened to have an image of Hitler.
Well, Judge, you're in our prayers and our thoughts, and I know you personally, and I know that where you're coming from on this. Did you ever thought, as a believer, a person of faith, a judge, that you would ever find yourself in this position?
No, it never crossed my mind. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm grateful to be an American, number one. Number two, I have a position of authority that needs to be discharged in honor and with courage. And I'm grateful for the opportunity I've been given to serve in this fashion. It discourages me that the commission, which is supposed to be fair and neutral, has taken this tact and seems to be coming after me personally for what are my beliefs, I believe. So I think we'll get through this as a nation, and it may make us stronger. That's my hope. I have great faith in the people of the United States and our system. And as our money says, in God we trust. I believe that as we continue to trust in God, He will continue to bless this nation.
Thank you, Judge. And please know, again, you're in our thoughts and prayers. Let's stay in touch on this, and any way that we can keep the ball rolling. And I want to say it again to our viewers and listeners. He needs our support. He needs our prayers. And if you feel led to donate to his defense fund, let me encourage you to do it. It's the defense fund is defendjudgeday.com. That's the website, defendjudgeday.com. Thank you, Judge. Blessings to you, my friend. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you, Barry. Nice to be with you.
All right, Judge Vance Day, and again, it's called defendjudgeday.com. That's the defense fund.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Delighted to have in the studio with us today our good friend Kevin Lamson. He's the Executive Director of Hearts with a Mission, and he's brought with him today Sarah Neal. She's also one of the staff members there at Hearts with a Mission. And how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Barry.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've been around here.
I know.
Yeah.
I've been busy.
And Sarah, good to see you again.
Good morning.
Good to see you guys. You got a big event coming up.
We do. September 19th out at Belfiore Winery. It's our 8th annual.
8th annual get together.
Yeah.
Okay. And we want to also share with you, you need host families. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, we started a new program this year. and it's called Safe Families for Children, but it's people that are willing to take kids that when family reunification is impossible back into their home and help them just become adults.
Wow. Sarah, you're part of the staff now.
I am.
And what's your role there? What do you do?
Oh, I do quite a bit there, actually. They have me bounce around a lot. It's mostly like a lot of training because I'm going to take over Hearts with Mission, of course.
Yeah.
And
she's here to take over. Okay.
She's probably good at it.
Yeah.
I'm technically support staff, and I do post-aftercare coordinating for Hearts with Mission.
Your story is very unique, and I think we have a little bit of it on videotape today. So let's see a part of Sarah's story.
From the time I was 12 until I was 18, I was my own parent. I paid my own bills. I actually would steal my mom's check from the government, and I would use it to get groceries for me and my little sister. And I would steal clothes, and I would make sure that she had school supplies. And I didn't realize that it wasn't something that I didn't have to do. I thought that was just life. That was just how it goes. I had moved around so much that I was able to pack up all of my belongings in a 15-minute time period and be able to go. No matter where I was at, no matter how long I had been there, if I needed to go, I was gone. And I remember there was just miscommunication, and I was certain that they were going to kick me out. And Patty came upstairs to just talk to me about it, and I was packing my things, and she just burst into tears because she never dealt with a kid who was just so ready to go. Having an unconditional family like that was the first time I've ever experienced that. They still don't want me to leave. I'm not scared anymore to have a family, and I'm not scared anymore to settle in, and I've actually started putting things on my bedroom wall and being comfortable being in a family again. I haven't had that since I was 12 years old. I didn't even know I was missing anything until I moved in there. Whether you are 8 years old or 18 years old or 80 years old, you're always going to need that family support. One of the most beautiful part of being God's children is you're 90 years old on your deathbed and you're still God's children. And we're still learning, and we're still making mistakes, and we still need support from everyone around us to make sure we get through it. We're not normal kids, but we can be. We can be just as normal as everyone else, but every once in a while you're going to see a little glimmer of what's different. Together we will run. This is definitely the best time of my life.
Wow, what a story. And how long were you basically homeless?
I moved out on my own when I was 13 years old. So I was technically homeless from 13 until 17 when I moved into Hearts.
Wow, wow. And now you're there to help others.
Yes.
Okay, and what a beautiful story.
Thank you.
It's a touching story to say the least, but it confirms what God called you to do.
Yep.
And so what's next? What are you guys doing?
Well, we're recruiting families. You know, we need families to take kids like Sarah, you know, and it's a short-term commitment. We'll provide the professional part of it as far as the case management. We just want families to love on kids and, you know, guide them through life a little bit.
Hearts with a Mission still very active. Are you full all the time?
Oh, yeah.
So how many students or how many kids down there?
Right now there's 14, and we were like 16 almost all summer.
Really?
Yeah, which is our capacity. A lot of times we're turning kids away.
And I think people don't realize how big the need really is.
No, they really don't. And it's, you know, kids like Sarah go under the radar. You know, they're not a statistic. They're, you know, they're just looking to survive. You know, and I think it was really powerful what she says. I never knew what I was missing. You know, and it's true, they don't, but when they have it, you can see what it means.
So you're another example of something I've said for years on the air, and that is whatever God saves you from, brings you through, turns you around, makes you a minister to, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And you're helping a lot of young people, and I just can't imagine how you're feeling today. How do you feel today?
I feel really blessed to be here. I'm really glad I'm here. I mean, this is the reason why I do what I do for work. I mean, I could have done other things, but I came to work for Kevin because there's a lot of kids out there like me. Wow. And if I can use any of my story, any of my experiences to help, I'm going to do it. That's what God put me here to do.
Heartswiththemission.org is the website. They've got a big event coming up Saturday, the 19th of September. That's a week from this Saturday in Ashland, and it's a fundraiser to help fund what you guys do. I don't know what your budget is. It's probably like ours. It's endless and it's ongoing. It's like this big gorilla in the corner that eats red meat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And what do people do to attend?
Just go to our website, and you can buy a ticket right there, and it'll have to be before next Wednesday.
Okay, so go to heartswiththemission.org if you want to get a ticket to the event coming up a week from Saturday, the 19th of September, and be a part of that and support what they're doing. And pray about a host family. What's a host family need to do to qualify?
Just call us.
Okay.
You know, if you have a heart for it, give us a call. We'll walk you through the process. We do training, we do parenting groups. You're going to have the support of Hearts with a Mission and our staff, our counseling, and most of the kids are just normal kids. They really are. They're just looking for somebody that says I care and to help guide them through life.
How big of a commitment is this? What are you looking for?
We're only asking for 30 days at a time, so
really,
I think it becomes a lifetime commitment. Once you dabble, you'll be your own little mini Hearts with a Mission. But it is, and it's not an easy road, because sometimes you have to work some things out. But if you hang in there, you can see what the results will be.
And Sarah, you're a living example of what it's all about. And now you found a home, you're turning around working in the home, you're part of it, you're giving out of your own experience, and I just want to say to our viewers and listeners, I can't say enough about what Kevin, Sarah, and the whole team do over there at Hearts with a Mission. These folks, I remember the very beginning vision, and it still resonates in my mind and my heart. So let me say to you, heartswiththemission.org. Heartswiththemission.org is the website. Buy a ticket for September 19th, go to the event, support them, and pray about becoming a host family. Just one step at a time, then we'll let God take care of the rest. Just poke your nose in the door, we'll just trust God for all the rest. Thanks you guys for coming in.
Thanks you, Perry.
All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.